The anniversary should have been simple. 25 years, a quarter of a century, 25 birthdays, 25 Christmas mornings, 25 summers spent building what I believed was a life together. When I was younger, 25 years sounded impossible, like something only older couples talked about, the kind who finished each other's sentences and held hands while walking through grocery stores. Then somehow, without realizing it, Marcus and I became one of those couples, or at least I believed we had. Looking back now, I can pinpoint the exact moment everything changed. It wasn't when I found the photographs. It wasn't when I uncovered the travel records. It wasn't even when Marcus finally stopped denying the truth. It began with something much smaller, a weekend getaway. 3 simple words: we should celebrate. That's what I said one evening in early September. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen island answering emails on his laptop. I stood at the stove stirring homemade tomato soup while grilled cheese sandwiches browned in the skillet. Nothing about the evening felt unusual. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Soft jazz played from the speaker in our living room. The smell of garlic and basil filled the house. It felt like home, comfortable, familiar, safe. Our 25th anniversary is only 3 weeks away, I said with a smile. I was thinking maybe we could disappear for a weekend. Marcus looked up. His blue eyes softened. For a brief moment, the expression on his face looked exactly like the man I had married. What did you have in mind? I don't know, I shrugged. A cabin somewhere, a beach, a vineyard. I laughed. We've spent 25 years taking care of everybody else. Maybe we should spend one weekend taking care of us. He smiled, a warm, familiar smile, the one that had always made me believe everything would be all right. I'd love that. My heart lifted. Really? Of course. He closed his laptop, walked into the kitchen, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, rested his chin gently against my shoulder. You deserve something special. I leaned back against him. For just a moment, life felt perfect. Then everything changed. Marcus sighed, a long, reluctant sigh. I just remembered. My smile faded slightly. What? He hesitated. The same weekend. I blinked. You're kidding. He wished he were. His disappointment looked genuine, painfully genuine. They just confirmed it this afternoon. I stared at him. 25 years together. Surely one conference could wait. Surely one weekend wasn't too much to ask. They need you there? He don't really have a choice. He reached for my hand. If I skip it, it'll look terrible. I looked away, toward the rain sliding down the kitchen window, toward the reflection of a woman trying very hard not to seem disappointed. It's okay. The words tasted false. We can celebrate next month. Marcus kissed my forehead. I'm so sorry. I know. And strangely enough, I believed him. I truly believed him, because Marcus had attended conferences for years, quarterly meetings, leadership retreats, executive summits, corporate planning sessions. Business travel had become part of our marriage. He missed birthdays, anniversaries, weekend plans, holiday dinners. It wasn't ideal, but I understood, or at least I thought I did. The following week passed quickly. Marcus packed Thursday evening, the same black suitcase he always used, the same garment bag, the same leather briefcase. He even showed me his conference badge, a plastic company credential hanging from a navy blue lanyard. See, he smiled, I wasn't making it up. I laughed. I never thought you were. Now, remembering those words hurts more than almost anything else, because I never questioned him, not once. Friday morning, he left just after sunrise. He kissed me goodbye at the front door. I'll call tonight. Drive safely. I love you. I love you too. Then he walked to the driveway, loaded his suitcase into the car, and disappeared around the corner. I watched until his taillights vanished, exactly as I had done dozens of times before. The house felt unusually quiet afterwards, empty. 25 years teaches you the sound of another person's presence. Even silence changes when they're gone. To distract myself, I spent Saturday organizing photo albums. I smiled at old vacation pictures, birthday parties, family reunions, Christmas mornings. So many memories, so many moments I believed belonged only to us. Sunday afternoon arrived slowly. Rain had finally cleared. Sunlight streamed through the living room windows. Soft jazz played from the speaker in our living room. The smell of garlic and basil filled the house. It felt like home. Comfortable, familiar, safe. Our 25th anniversary is only 3 weeks away, I said with a smile. I was thinking maybe we could disappear for a weekend. Marcus looked up. His blue eyes softened. For a brief moment, the expression on his face looked exactly like the man I had married. What did you have in mind? I don't know, I shrugged. A cabin somewhere. A beach. A vineyard? I laughed. We've spent 25 years taking care of everybody else. Maybe we should spend one weekend taking care of us. He smiled, a warm, familiar smile, the one that had always made me believe everything would be all right. I'd love that. My heart lifted. Really? Of course. He closed his laptop, walked into the kitchen, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, rested his chin gently against my shoulder. You deserve something special. I leaned back against him. For just a moment, life felt perfect. Then everything changed. Marcus sighed, a long, reluctant sigh. I just remembered. My smile faded slightly. What? He hesitated. The same weekend. I blinked. You're kidding. He wished he were. His disappointment looked genuine, painfully genuine. They just confirmed it this afternoon. I stared at him. 25 years together. Surely one conference could wait. Surely one weekend wasn't too much to ask. They need you there? He don't really have a choice. He reached for my hand. If I skip it, it'll look terrible. I looked away, toward the rain sliding down the kitchen window, toward the reflection of a woman trying very hard not to seem disappointed. It's okay. The words tasted false. We can celebrate next month. Marcus kissed my forehead. I'm so sorry. I know. And strangely enough, I believed him. I truly believed him, because Marcus had attended conferences for years, quarterly meetings, leadership retreats, executive summits, corporate planning sessions. Business travel had become part of our marriage. He missed birthdays, anniversaries, weekend plans, holiday dinners. It wasn't ideal, but I understood, or at least I thought I did. The following week passed quickly. Marcus packed Thursday evening, the same black suitcase he always used, the same garment bag, the same leather briefcase. He even showed me his conference badge, a plastic company credential hanging from a navy blue lanyard. See, he smiled, I wasn't making it up. I laughed. I never thought you were. Now, remembering those words hurts more than almost anything else, because I never questioned him, not once. Friday morning, he left just after sunrise. He kissed me goodbye at the front door. I'll call tonight. Drive safely. I love you. I love you too. Then he walked to the driveway, loaded his suitcase into the car, and disappeared around the corner. I watched until his taillights vanished, exactly as I had done dozens of times before. The house felt unusually quiet afterwards, empty. 25 years teaches you the sound of another person's presence. Even silence changes when they're gone. To distract myself, I spent Saturday organizing photo albums. I smiled at old vacation pictures, birthday parties, family reunions, Christmas mornings. So many memories, so many moments I believed belonged only to us. Sunday afternoon arrived slowly. Rain had finally cleared. Sunlight streamed through the living room windows. Soft jazz played from the speaker in our living room. The smell of garlic and basil filled the house. It felt like home, comfortable, familiar, safe. Our 25th anniversary is only 3 weeks away, I said with a smile. I was thinking maybe we could disappear for a weekend. Marcus looked up. His blue eyes softened. For a brief moment, the expression on his face looked exactly like the man I had married. What did you have in mind? I don't know, I shrugged. A cabin somewhere. A beach. A vineyard. I laughed. We've spent 25 years taking care of everybody else. Maybe we should spend one weekend taking care of us. He smiled, a warm, familiar smile, the one that had always made me believe everything would be all right. I'd love that. My heart lifted. Really? Of course. He closed his laptop, walked into the kitchen, wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, rested his chin gently against my shoulder. You deserve something special. I leaned back against him. For just a moment, life felt perfect. I stared at her profile picture for nearly a full minute before I touched the screen. My finger hovered over her name, as though tapping it would somehow make everything real. Until then, I still had options. I could close the app, tell myself the photograph meant nothing, convince myself Marcus had been standing beside a client, a coworker, someone whose arm just happened to be around his waist at exactly the wrong moment. Denial can be strangely comforting. Reality rarely is. Finally, I tapped her profile. Her name was Lauren Mitchell. The first thing I noticed wasn't her photograph, it was her privacy settings. Her account was public, completely public. Thousands of followers, hundreds of photographs, years of memories. My pulse quickened, because public accounts don't hide much. People who believe they have nothing to conceal rarely do. I opened the most recent post. The same vineyard, the same sunset, different angle. Marcus appeared again. This time there was no uncertainty. He stood beside Lauren holding 2 engraved wine glasses. Both smiled directly at the camera. The caption read, "Some traditions are worth protecting forever. 8 beautiful years." 8 years. I read the number again. 8. Not 8 months, not 8 weekends. 8 years. The words echoed inside my mind. Our 25th anniversary? There's 8s. My stomach twisted so violently I had to put my coffee on the table before I dropped it. I kept scrolling, photograph after photograph. Not hundreds, not yet, just enough to establish something unmistakable. There they were, hiking through Colorado, standing beside a waterfall, walking through autumn leaves in Vermont, watching fireworks over a harbor, holding hands on a beach at sunrise. Every photograph carried the same quiet intimacy. Nothing inappropriate, nothing reckless, just 2 people who clearly belonged together, or believed they did. Then I noticed something else. Dates. Every photograph included a date. I frowned. The first anniversary trip had been exactly 8 years earlier. The second, 1 year later. The third, the fourth, every September, every anniversary season. Always during one of Marcus's executive conferences. I leaned back against the sofa, unable to think, unable to move, because suddenly memories began returning, one after another, like dominoes falling. The leadership retreat in Seattle, the strategic planning summit in San Diego, the executive workshop in Denver, the annual board conference in California, every year, always around our anniversary, always 3 days, always impossible to miss. I remembered asking if spouses could attend. Marcus always smiled apologetically. Unfortunately not. I remembered believing him, without question, without hesitation, without suspicion. A strange numbness settled over me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, something quieter. I clicked on another photograph. This one had been taken beside a mountain lake. Lauren wore a cream sweater. Marcus had his arm around her shoulders. Both laughed at something outside the frame. The caption was simple: "Our place." Our place. The words hurt more than they should have, because I suddenly realized something. Marcus and I had places too, or at least I believed we did. The little seafood restaurant where he proposed, the lake where we celebrated our 10th anniversary, the park where we walked after Sunday brunch. Now I wondered, had he created another collection of memories somewhere else? Another set of favorite places? Another life? The thought made me physically ill. I stood, walked into the kitchen, poured my untouched coffee into the sink, then returned to the living room. My hands still trembled. Instinct told me to keep looking. Reason told me to stop. Instinct won. I opened the tagged photographs. Dozens appeared. Different people, different events, different vineyards, different resorts. But Marcus appeared again, and again, and again. Sometimes in the background, sometimes beside Lauren, always smiling, always relaxed, always looking like a man exactly where he wanted to be. Then something caught my attention, a photograph from 6 years earlier. The date immediately looked familiar, extremely familiar. I opened my calendar app, scrolled backward, checked the date. My heart stopped. That weekend had been my birthday, not our anniversary, my birthday. Marcus missed dinner because of an emergency strategy meeting in Chicago. I remembered eating cake alone. I remembered blowing out candles by myself because he promised we'd celebrate properly the following week. According to the photograph, he wasn't in Chicago. He was in Oregon, standing inside a vineyard, laughing, holding Lauren's hand. I covered my mouth because suddenly the lies expanded. This wasn't only about anniversaries, birthdays, family weekends, holiday trips, business conferences. Everything required re-examination. Everything. Then I noticed something else most people probably would have ignored. Lauren wasn't the only one posting. The Vineyard had uploaded an entire album, nearly 60 photographs, guests mingling, wine tastings, dinner, live music. I downloaded every image, one by one, without really thinking, without asking myself why. Something inside me already understood. Social media changes. People delete things. Posts disappear. Accounts become private. If I didn't save them now, I might never see them again. So I downloaded every photograph, every angle, every timestamp, every smiling face. By the time I finished, there were nearly 80 images stored on my laptop. I sat back, emotionally drained. The room had grown darker. Outside, evening settled quietly across the neighborhood. Inside, my marriage felt unfamiliar. I looked again at Marcus smiling beneath vineyard lights. Then my eyes drifted downward, towards something almost invisible, a tiny location tag beneath one photograph. Curious, I tapped it. The vineyard's event page opened, then the guest list. Every attendee, every reservation, every booking. And sitting beside Lauren Mitchell's reservation was a name that made my blood run cold. For a moment, I convinced myself I had read it incorrectly. I blinked, closed the page, opened it again. The name remained exactly the same. Mark Reynolds. Not Marcus Reynolds. Mark Reynolds. Just one missing syllable. One tiny alteration, one deliberate choice. It looked insignificant, almost harmless, until I realized exactly why someone would do it. To avoid being found, to make searches more difficult, to leave just enough truth to feel believable. My stomach tightened, because suddenly this didn't feel impulsive. It felt practiced, experienced, carefully managed. I stared at the reservation details. 2 guests, luxury Vineyard anniversary weekend, 3 nights, private wine tasting, sunset dinner, couples photography session. Everything had been reserved months in advance. Months. Not days, not weeks, months. Marcus hadn't lied because an opportunity suddenly appeared. He had planned this, carefully, long before I suggested our anniversary trip. The realization hurt in a completely different way. When I stood in our kitchen asking if we could spend a weekend together, he already knew he wouldn't be with me. He had already promised that weekend to someone else. I closed my eyes, trying to slow my breathing, trying not to imagine him making those reservations while sitting across the dinner table from me. Then another thought appeared. If this trip was booked months ago, what about the conference? The conference badge, the emails, the itinerary, everything he'd shown me. I walked into Marcus's home office. His desk remained exactly as he'd left it, organized, neat, color-coded folders, stacks of business files. His work laptop wasn't there. He always carried it on trips, but the filing cabinet remained. I opened the drawer labeled Travel. Inside were dozens of folders, one for each business trip: conference schedules, flight confirmations, hotel reservations, expense reports. At least, that's what I expected. Instead, I discovered something strange. The folder for this week's conference contained almost nothing, just a printed agenda, a plastic badge holder, and a hotel confirmation. No airline itinerary, no registration receipt, no conference welcome packet, no presentation schedule. That wasn't like Marcus. He saved everything. Every receipt, every boarding pass, every confirmation email. The absence bothered me a lot. I took photographs of every document, then carefully returned everything exactly where I'd found it. Years of marriage had taught me one thing. If Marcus noticed someone had searched his office, he would ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. That night he called, right on schedule. "Hey, sweetheart." His voice sounded relaxed, comfortable, like every other business trip. "How's California?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence, just for a second. Then he laughed. "I'm not in California." My mistake. I forced a small laugh. "I meant Chicago. Long day." I listened carefully. No background conversation, no conference noise, no hotel lobby. Instead, birds, soft music, wind. The sounds reminded me of the Vineyard videos I'd just watched. "What are you doing?" "Just stepped outside the hotel." He answered too quickly. "Needed some fresh air." I looked at the photograph open on my laptop, Marcus standing beneath Vineyard lights, holding Lauren close, smiling. "What hotel?" Another tiny pause. "The Grand Executive." I typed the name into my search bar. Nothing. No hotel, no chain, no listing, nothing. A hotel that didn't exist. He continued talking, describing meetings, presentations, networking dinners. Every sentence sounded rehearsed, almost memorized. I realized something disturbing. Marcus wasn't inventing excuses while speaking. He had prepared them, probably days earlier, maybe weeks. The call ended 20 minutes later. "I'll be home Sunday evening. I'll miss you." "I miss you too." The words echoed painfully after I hung up, because suddenly I questioned every "I love you" I'd heard the past 8 years. How many had been spoken from hotel balconies beside another woman? How many anniversary phone calls happened after romantic dinners I knew nothing about? I barely slept that night. By morning, sadness had become determination. Photographs alone weren't enough. Marcus would deny photographs, claim coincidence, claim misunderstanding, claim editing. I needed facts. Real facts, travel records, reservations, financial documents, evidence impossible to explain away. I remembered something. Marcus and I shared one credit card for travel expenses, mostly because his company reimbursed business costs. I opened our online banking account, scrolled backward. Month after month, year after year. At first, everything looked normal. Hotel charges, airfare, restaurants, conference expenses, exactly what I'd expect. Then I noticed a pattern. Large reimbursements always appeared, except several transactions never received reimbursement. Thousands of dollars, luxury resorts, wine tastings, spa packages, private dining. I frowned. Marcus always claimed the company reimbursed everything. Apparently, that wasn't true. I downloaded every statement, created folders, sorted them by year. The numbers became impossible to ignore. 8 years, 8 anniversary seasons, dozens of luxury purchases, none connected to corporate travel, none reimbursed, and every payment came directly from our joint account. Money I helped earn, money intended for our future, money quietly funding another relationship. I leaned back in my chair, emotionally exhausted. Then something caught my eye. One charge from 4 years ago, a boutique hotel. The date wasn't our anniversary. It wasn't even September. I checked my calendar. My heart immediately began pounding because that weekend, Marcus told me he was attending my nephew's graduation. He said he hated missing it. He even brought home a graduation program, a program I'd never bothered to examine. Now, for the first time, I wondered if that program was as real as the conference badge sitting in his office. And suddenly I realized I wasn't investigating one anniversary trip. I was investigating 8 years of my entire marriage. By Monday morning, my dining room no longer looked like a dining room. It looked like an investigation. Bank statements covered one end of the table. Printed photographs covered the other. My laptop sat open in the middle. Beside it rested a yellow legal pad filled with dates, cities, hotel names, conference titles, questions. So many questions. For 25 years, that table had been where birthdays were celebrated, where Thanksgiving dinners were shared, where our nieces colored Christmas ornaments, while Marcus pretended to lose every board game we played. Now it had become the place where I was dismantling my own marriage, one receipt at a time. I barely noticed the clock. Hours disappeared while I compared travel dates with bank statements. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Every so-called executive conference followed the same formula. Marcus left on a Thursday morning, returned Sunday evening. There was always a luxury hotel charge, always expensive restaurants, always airfare, always transportation, and always a second airline ticket. At first, I thought I was mistaken. The charges appeared almost identical, just minutes apart. Same airline, same destination, same amount, different passenger reference numbers. I leaned closer to the screen, then checked another year. The same thing. Then another. Again, every anniversary trip included 2 airline tickets purchased from our joint account, not 1, 2. The evidence sat quietly on my screen, cold, mathematical, impossible to argue with. I swallowed hard, then opened a spreadsheet. If Marcus wanted to tell stories, I would collect facts. I listed every conference, every destination, every hotel, every restaurant, every airline charge, every Vineyard photograph. Slowly, a timeline emerged. 8 years, 8 fake conferences, 8 romantic anniversary vacations, thousands upon thousands of dollars. By lunchtime, I stopped crying, not because the pain disappeared, because my mind shifted into something else. Clarity. The tears would return later. For now, I needed precision. Marcus had spent years controlling the narrative. I refused to make assumptions. Everything had to be documented, verified, supported. Then I remembered something that made my pulse quicken. The cloud storage account. Years earlier, Marcus connected our phones to a shared family cloud account so photographs would automatically back up. I hadn't checked it in months, maybe longer. With trembling hands, I logged in. Thousands of photographs appeared. Family vacations, holiday dinners, pictures of our grandchildren, garden projects, birthday cakes, normal life. Then I searched one word. California. Only a few results appeared. Most were old, family vacations, business conference pictures. Then one thumbnail caught my attention. It had never been deleted. It had simply never been organized. I opened it. Marcus stood in front of the same Vineyard entrance, the exact Vineyard from Lauren's social media page, except this photograph wasn't cropped. Lauren stood beside him, one hand resting comfortably on his chest, both smiling directly at the camera. My breath caught. This photograph wasn't public. It wasn't downloaded from social media. It came directly from Marcus's own phone, which meant only one thing. At some point, he intended to keep it. Maybe accidentally, maybe carelessly, maybe because after so many years, the lies became routine. I searched another location, Colorado. More photographs appeared, then Oregon, Arizona, Napa, Charleston. Every search uncovered another piece, another weekend, another memory, another version of Marcus. One photograph made me physically ill. It showed Marcus and Lauren standing beside a birthday cake. Candles glowed softly. The cake read, "Happy Birthday, Lauren." I checked the date, then my own calendar. My hands started shaking again. That birthday was the same weekend my sister underwent emergency heart surgery. Marcus told me he couldn't come because his company moved an important leadership retreat. I remembered crying in the hospital parking garage after spending 16 hours beside my sister. I remembered wishing my husband were there. Instead, he had been blowing out birthday candles with someone else. The realization nearly broke me, not because he celebrated another woman's birthday, because he knowingly abandoned me during one of the hardest weekends of my life. Again. The pattern wasn't simply infidelity, it was absence, calculated absence. Whenever life became difficult, whenever I needed him most, Marcus always seemed to have another conference, another retreat, another emergency meeting. Now I knew why. By late afternoon, my spreadsheet contained more than 60 entries, every lie connected to evidence, every trip connected to money, every excuse connected to photographs. Then I noticed something I hadn't been looking for, the conference names themselves. I typed several into a search engine. Nothing. No corporate websites, no archived schedules, no registration pages, no executive organizations. One after another, they simply didn't exist. Marcus hadn't been attending fake conferences. He had invented fake conferences, entire events, complete with printed agendas, name badges, travel schedules, hotel confirmations. The amount of planning stunned me because fake conferences require fake paperwork. Fake paperwork requires preparation. Preparation requires intention. This wasn't spontaneous deception. It was a second career, a second identity, a second life. By late afternoon, headlights swept across the living room window. I looked outside. Marcus's car, right on schedule, 3 days after leaving for a conference that never existed, 3 days after celebrating another anniversary with another woman, 3 days after I discovered 8 years of lies. I closed my laptop, neatly stacked every document, slid everything into a storage box, then carried it quietly into the guest bedroom closet. By the time Marcus opened the front door, the dining room looked exactly the way he remembered it. Dinner simmered on the stove, the TV played softly in the background, and I stood at the kitchen counter, smiling calmly, as though nothing had changed. Marcus walked in carrying his suitcase. He smiled, walked over, and kissed me on the forehead. God, I'm glad to be home. I looked directly into his eyes, the same eyes I'd trusted for 25 years, and for the first time in my marriage, I knew with complete certainty I was looking at a stranger.
God, I'm glad to be home. Marcus smiled as though nothing in the world had changed, as though the past 3 days had unfolded exactly the way he claimed, as though he had actually attended meetings, shaken hands, sat through presentations, networked with executives. Meanwhile, I had spent 72 hours dismantling 8 years of lies. I smiled back, not because I wanted to, because I needed him to believe I knew nothing. How was the conference? The question came easily, almost naturally. Marcus set his suitcase beside the stairs. Long before answering, he loosened his tie, another familiar routine. It was exhausting, he laughed quietly. 3 days of meetings that could have been emails. I nodded. I imagine. He walked into the kitchen, lifted the lid from the pot simmering on the stove. Chicken and dumplings? Your favorite. He kissed my cheek. Thank you. The gesture almost made me flinch, because suddenly I wondered how many times he'd come home from Lauren's arms only to kiss me exactly the same way. I pushed the thought aside. Not now. I needed information, not emotion. Dinner felt strangely ordinary. Marcus talked, I listened. He described keynote speakers, leadership workshops, budget planning, corporate restructuring. Every detail sounded believable, specific, confident, prepared. If I hadn't seen the photographs, I would have believed every word. Halfway through dinner, I asked casually, "What hotel did you stay at again?" He barely looked up from his plate. "The Grand Executive. The one downtown? That's the one." I smiled. "I was thinking maybe we could stay there someday." His fork paused, only for a fraction of a second, then continued. "It's mostly business travelers." "I know. I just wondered what it looked like." "It's nice." Nice. Such a simple word, considering the hotel didn't actually exist. After dinner, Marcus unpacked. I watched carefully. The same navy suit, the same dress shirts, the same conference badge. Then he pulled a folded brochure from his briefcase. "Here," he handed it to me. "One of the presentations gave these away." I accepted it. Corporate Leadership Summit. Beautiful printing, professional logo, detailed agenda. At first glance, completely authentic. Until I noticed something tiny. The brochure listed a website. I memorized it. Later, that night after Marcus fell asleep, I quietly left our bedroom. I carried the brochure into the kitchen, opened my laptop, typed the web address. Error. Page not found. I checked for spelling mistakes. None. Tried again. Nothing. Then I searched the conference name. Nothing. No archived announcements, no speakers lists, no sponsor pages, no registration history. It simply didn't exist. The brochure had been professionally designed for an event that had never happened. I stared at the screen. Marcus hadn't simply lied. He manufactured evidence. That realization frightened me more than anything else. How many fake brochures had there been? How many fake badges? How many fake itineraries? How many years had I accepted printed proof without questioning it? The next morning, Marcus left for work at exactly 7:15, just like every weekday. He kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, then drove away. The moment his car disappeared, I called the airline. Not to ask questions, to request copies of statements attached to our joint travel account. The representative was kind, professional. After verifying my identity, she emailed every itinerary purchased through our shared rewards account during the previous 8 years. The file arrived 20 minutes later. I downloaded it immediately, then began comparing names. Most reservations listed Marcus Reynolds, business travel, family vacations, perfectly normal. Then I found them, reservations under another passenger, Lauren Mitchell, booked within minutes of Marcus's tickets, same flights, same destinations, seats together, every single time. Sometimes 12A and 12B, sometimes 3C and 3D, always side by side. I covered my mouth because airplane seats don't lie, not the way people do. People forget, people deny, people invent excuses. Reservation systems simply record facts. I continued reading. Another discovery waited. Marcus hadn't used his corporate travel account. He paid personally, using our joint credit card, then quietly reimbursed only his ticket through work. Lauren's airfare, luxury hotels, wine tastings, private tours, everything came from money that belonged to both of us. I opened my spreadsheet again, adding numbers, adding dates, adding totals. The total climbed steadily. $5,000, $12,000, $21,000, $34,000. By the time I finished, the total exceeded $87,000. Nearly $87,000 spent financing another relationship. Money we'd planned to use for retirement, for home repairs, for future grandchildren, for our life. I sat silently for several minutes, not crying anymore. The tears seemed to have exhausted themselves. In their place came something unfamiliar: resolve. For the first time since finding the Vineyard photograph, I wasn't wondering whether Marcus would admit the truth. I already knew he wouldn't. The real question had become something else. How could I prove everything so completely that no explanation he invented would survive 5 minutes? As if answering my question, my phone vibrated. A notification from the Vineyard. Someone had commented on the anniversary photograph. Curious, I opened it. The comment itself meant nothing, but beneath it, Lauren had uploaded 3 new pictures from the weekend, including one image that made my heart stop. Marcus wasn't just wearing casual vacation clothes. He was wearing the silver anniversary watch I had given him for our 25th wedding anniversary, just 2 days before he left for his conference. The watch. Of everything I had uncovered, the photographs, the fake conferences, the airline reservations, the hotel invoices, for some reason, the watch hurt the most. Maybe because I remembered buying it, not just buying it, choosing it. 3 months earlier, I had wandered through half a dozen jewelry stores before finding the right one. Marcus had always preferred understated things. Nothing flashy, nothing oversized, just clean lines, classic design. The silver watch seemed perfect. I even paid extra to have something engraved inside. 25 years, still my favorite adventure. Love, Angela. I remembered smiling as the jeweler handed it back to me, carefully wrapped, beautifully polished. I imagined Marcus wearing it during business meetings, family dinners, retirement. I imagined it becoming something he would someday hand to a grandson. Instead, he wore it while celebrating another anniversary with another woman. I enlarged Lauren's photograph until the image became grainy. There was no mistake. The watch reflected the evening sunlight. Even the tiny scratch near the clasp was visible. The scratch happened the week after Christmas when Marcus accidentally caught it against our garage door. I remembered teasing him. "You've had it a week." He laughed. "I guess now it looks broken in." Now I stared at the same scratch, proof that the photograph wasn't old, proof that Marcus couldn't claim someone edited the image, proof that he had carried my gift into another woman's celebration. I downloaded the new photographs immediately. Then something caught my attention. Lauren had written another caption, not beneath the first picture, beneath the third. It read, "Already looking forward to next year's tradition." Next year? She expected another anniversary, another trip, another vineyard, another lie. She had absolutely no idea everything was about to collapse. Neither did Marcus. I closed my laptop, walked slowly into our bedroom, opened Marcus's closet. For years, I never searched through his things. Marriage, I believed, required trust. Now, trust had already been destroyed. I simply hadn't accepted it yet. On the top shelf sat a black leather travel bag, the one he never allowed anyone else to pack. He always joked that he had a system. I understood why now. Inside, I found ordinary things: toothbrush, electric razor, phone charger, travel-size cologne, nothing unusual. Then I opened a small zippered compartment. My breath caught. Inside rested another hotel key card, not from this weekend, from 2 years earlier. The hotel logo matched one of the charges on our bank statement, a luxury resort in Charleston. The date printed on the sleeve corresponded perfectly with another executive retreat, another conference that never existed. I placed the key card carefully on the bed, then continued searching. Beneath the lining, I felt something firm, a hidden pocket. My fingers slid underneath the fabric. There was an envelope, plain white, no labels. Inside were boarding passes, several of them, old enough that the paper had started fading. I counted 1, 2, 5, 8. Every September, every anniversary weekend, every destination I'd already documented. Marcus had saved them. Why? Sentiment? Carelessness? Arrogance? I didn't know. What I did know was this. Every boarding pass carried 2 names, Marcus Reynolds, Lauren Mitchell, seats together every year. I photographed each one before placing them exactly where I'd found them. Nothing could appear disturbed, not yet, because I wasn't finished. That afternoon, I called my friend Denise, not to tell her everything. I wasn't ready. I simply asked a question. Do you remember all those leadership conferences Marcus used to attend? There was a brief silence. Then Denise answered, I always thought it was strange. Strange how? My pulse quickened. Strange how? Robert's company works with yours sometimes. Her husband worked in corporate consulting. He never heard of half those conferences. I froze. What? I figured maybe they were internal events. She laughed softly. I even asked Robert once. My throat tightened. What did he say? He said the name sounded made up. Made up? The words echoed inside me. For years, people around us noticed things I never questioned, not because I was foolish, because I trusted my husband. There is a difference. Denise continued, I hope I didn't upset you. I didn't. I just always wondered why Marcus traveled so much. After we hung up, I sat quietly in the kitchen, looking around the house we had built together. The photographs on the walls, the anniversary gifts, the framed vacation pictures. How many memories were real? How many had simply filled the spaces between lies? My phone buzzed. A text message from Marcus. Running a little late, don't wait for dinner. Love you. I stared at the message, then smiled sadly. Not because I believed it, because for the first time, I wondered where he actually was. Almost instinctively, I opened Lauren's public profile again. She had posted something only 4 minutes ago, not a photograph, a short video. The location tag read, Riverside Bistro, less than 20 minutes from my house. I pressed play. Lauren laughed as she filmed the table. Then the camera turned, just for a second, long enough to capture the man sitting across from her. Marcus, still wearing the anniversary watch I had given him, still smiling, still telling me he was working late. And for the first time, I wasn't watching evidence from the past. I was watching my husband lie to me in real time. I watched the 7-second video at least 20 times. Each replay lasted only a heartbeat. Lauren laughed. The camera drifted across the table. Marcus looked up, smiled, raised his wine glass. Then the clip ended. 7 seconds. That was all. 7 ordinary seconds. Yet somehow they erased 25 years of certainty. The timestamp appeared in the corner, 6:42 p.m. I looked at Marcus's text message again. Running a little late, don't wait for dinner, love you. Sent at 6:38. 4 minutes. 4 minutes after telling me he was working, he was sitting across from another woman sharing dinner. The precision stunned me. He hadn't lied hours earlier. He hadn't lied that morning. He lied almost simultaneously. The deception had become effortless, automatic, like breathing. I didn't cry. I surprised myself. Instead, I opened my laptop, created a new folder. I named it simply Evidence. Inside it, I created smaller folders: photographs, videos, travel, bank records, social media. I downloaded Lauren's video immediately, then another, and another. Her profile contained years of short clips. Most seemed harmless: walking through airports, checking into hotels, watching sunsets, wine tastings, boat rides, little moments people naturally record when they're happy. The problem wasn't the videos, it was who appeared in them. Marcus, always just outside the center of the frame. Sometimes only his voice, sometimes his hand, sometimes his reflection in a restaurant window, sometimes his laugh. Enough to identify him, enough to establish a timeline, enough to destroy every excuse he might invent. Then I noticed something interesting. Lauren rarely tagged Marcus. Instead, she tagged someone called M. Reynolds, a private account. No profile picture, no public posts, just initials. Careful, deliberately careful. I clicked anyway. Nothing. Private. But one detail caught my attention. The account had existed for 9 years. 9. Longer than the relationship itself, which meant Marcus probably created it before Lauren. A separate identity, separate from work, separate from family, separate from me. I took another screenshot. Everything mattered now. Around 7:30, headlights swept across the driveway. Marcus, earlier than his text suggested. I closed the laptop, locked my phone, took a deep breath. The front door opened. "I'm home." His voice sounded cheerful, relaxed, as though he'd spent the evening reviewing quarterly budgets instead of drinking wine with another woman. I walked into the hallway. "You made it." He smiled. "Meeting wrapped up early." Meeting. The word barely registered anymore. Every sentence he spoke now required translation. He hung his jacket inside the closet, then kissed me lightly. "Everything okay?" I held his gaze. "Fine." He searched my face for a moment, just long enough to make me wonder if he sensed something. Then he smiled again. "I'm starving. I'll heat dinner." As I walked toward the kitchen, I noticed something I hadn't expected. Marcus was humming. Actually humming. The same old jazz tune he always hummed when he was happy. That detail hurt more than I expected, because happiness requires peace, contentment. Whatever guilt he carried, it clearly wasn't heavy enough to silence him. During dinner, I asked ordinary questions. How was traffic? Busy. How was work? Stressful. Any new projects? Several. Every answer arrived smoothly, without contradiction. He had rehearsed this life for years. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I quietly opened our phone carrier account. Marcus had placed me on the family plan years ago. Neither of us ever bothered changing the passwords. I downloaded 6 months of call records, not conversations, just numbers, dates, times, patterns. One number appeared constantly: morning, lunch, late evening, weekends, sometimes lasting 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. Always when Marcus claimed to be working. I copied the number, typed it into a search engine. Nothing. Then I searched it through a public people directory. The result appeared instantly: Lauren Mitchell. The same mobile number connected to her public business profile. I leaned back slowly. Another piece, another confirmation, another fact. By midnight, I'd stopped asking whether Marcus was unfaithful. That question had already been answered. Now I wanted to understand something else. How had he managed 2 lives for 8 years without making more mistakes? The answer arrived unexpectedly. The following morning, Marcus left early for work. As soon as he drove away, the doorbell rang. A delivery driver stood on the porch holding a medium-sized gift box. "Package for Mr. Marcus Reynolds." I signed automatically. The label caught my attention. Luxury Vineyard Collection, Napa Valley, California. Return customer appreciation shipment. Inside the box rested 6 bottles of wine, 2 crystal anniversary glasses, and a handwritten thank you card. I unfolded it carefully. My hands immediately began to shake because the note wasn't addressed to Marcus alone. It began with 5 simple words: Dear Marcus and Lauren.
Dear Marcus and Lauren. I read the words once, then again, then a third time, each time hoping my eyes had made a mistake. They hadn't. The elegant handwritten script remained exactly the same. Dear Marcus and Lauren. The rest of the note was almost unbearable to read. Thank you for joining us again for our annual anniversary harvest weekend. It has been a joy celebrating your love over the past 8 years. We look forward to welcoming you back next September. 8 years. Even the Vineyard knew. The staff remembered them. They weren't anonymous guests. They were regulars, recognized, welcomed, expected. My hands trembled so badly I had to place the card on the kitchen counter. I looked inside the box again. 6 bottles of wine. Each bottle carried a custom label. One caught my attention immediately. A small gold emblem. Anniversary Reserve. Beneath it, another inscription. Reserved exclusively for returning couples. Returning couples. Not first-time visitors, not corporate clients. Couples. My throat tightened because suddenly I understood something I hadn't considered before. Marcus hadn't simply been visiting this vineyard. He had been building traditions there, creating memories, returning year after year. The kind of traditions I believed belonged to our marriage. I carefully photographed everything. The card, the bottles, the shipping label, the return address. Then I repackaged the box exactly as it had arrived. An hour later, Marcus called. "Did a package come today?" His voice sounded casual, too casual. "Yes." "What was it?" I glanced toward the unopened box. "Wine." He laughed softly. "Oh, probably one of those appreciation gifts from a client." Client. Another lie. Without hesitation, without effort. "I'll look at it tonight. No rush." He changed the subject immediately, asked about groceries, the weather, whether I remembered to schedule the plumber. Normal conversation, completely ordinary. I answered every question calmly. By the time we hung up, I realized something. Marcus wasn't worried about the package because he assumed it would never be opened. He assumed I would see wine, set it aside, and never read the card. That assumption had probably protected him for years. After lunch, I carried the box into the guest bedroom, placed it beside my growing collection of evidence. The closet shelves had become an archive. Bank statements, photographs, travel records, airline confirmations, hotel invoices, screenshots, videos, boarding passes. And now, the anniversary wine shipment. Each item told the same story. None of them relied on assumptions, only facts. Then I noticed something on the shipping label, a customer membership number. Curious, I visited the Vineyard's website. The membership portal required only 2 things: membership number, zip code. I already had both. Marcus had used our home address. My pulse quickened as I typed the information. The page loaded. Then my breath caught. An entire customer account appeared. 8 years of reservations, purchase history, wine club memberships, special event registrations. Every anniversary weekend carefully documented. The website even displayed photographs from previous events, photographs I hadn't found on social media, private gallery images. Marcus and Lauren walking through vineyards, laughing beside harvest tables, watching sunsets, holding hands. The timestamp stretched back almost a decade. I downloaded every single one. Then another section caught my eye. Purchase history, not just wine, gift shop purchases, personalized items, custom engravings. I opened the receipts.
One invoice nearly made me drop the mouse. A silver bracelet, custom engraved, purchased 5 years earlier. The engraving read, "Forever my favorite adventure." I stared at the words, unable to breathe, because they sounded familiar, very familiar. Then I remembered the inside of the anniversary watch I had given Marcus, 25 years, still my favorite adventure. Love, Angela. Marcus hadn't copied my words, he had recycled them, taken a phrase that belonged to our marriage and given a version of it to another woman. The realization broke something inside me, not loudly, quietly, the kind of break that happens after too much weight has been carried for too long. I closed the laptop, walked slowly to the living room, sat in complete silence. Outside, children rode bicycles down the street, neighbors watered flowers. Life continued exactly as it always had, only mine had changed. Around 5 o'clock, Denise called. "How are you holding up?" I hesitated, then answered honestly, "I know more than I did yesterday." She was quiet for a moment. Finally, she asked, "Do you have enough?" The question surprised me. Enough? Enough evidence. I looked toward the guest bedroom, toward the closet filled with 8 years of lies. "I think so." Denise spoke gently. "Then stop looking." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Angela," her voice softened, "at some point you stop collecting proof for the truth," a pause, "and start collecting proof for the pain." Her words settled over me, because she was right. I didn't need another photograph, another receipt, another reservation. The truth had already been established, completely, thoroughly, beyond question. I thanked her, hung up, then walked to the guest bedroom one last time. As I reached for the closet door, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. Normally I ignored calls like that. Something made me answer. "Hello?" A woman's voice responded. Quiet, nervous. "Is this Angela Reynolds?" "Yes." Another pause. Then she said 6 words that instantly changed everything again. "My name is Lauren Mitchell." For several seconds, I couldn't answer. The room seemed to disappear around me. All I could hear was my own breathing and the quiet voice waiting on the other end of the line. My name is Lauren Mitchell, the name I had read dozens of times, the woman whose photographs I had downloaded, the woman standing beside my husband beneath Vineyard sunsets, the woman who had unknowingly become part of every sleepless night I'd lived through that week. Now she was speaking directly to me. Neither of us said anything. Finally, I managed one word. "Yes?" Lauren took a slow breath. "I don't know how to begin." Neither did I. My fingers tightened around the phone. "I suppose honesty is the only place left to start." Her voice trembled. "I found your number yesterday." Yesterday? Which meant while Marcus was eating dinner at our table, Lauren had already begun searching for me. I wasn't sure if I should call. Another pause. "I've dialed your number 6 times. I closed my eyes, because suddenly I recognized the emotion beneath her words. Fear. Not the fear of being caught, the fear of hurting someone. I almost hung up again. She sounded exhausted. But I don't think either of us deserves another lie. The sentence landed gently, without accusation, without anger, just truth. I walked into the living room and sat beside the window. The afternoon sun stretched across the hardwood floor. Everything outside looked peaceful. Inside, nothing felt familiar anymore. "What made you call?" The question came quietly. Lauren didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different, broken. "Because Marcus lied to me too." I stared through the window, certain I had misunderstood. "What?"
I didn't know you existed. The words came slowly, carefully. As unbelievable as that sounds, I didn't know. My heartbeat quickened. I remembered Richard's words from another story, another life, another betrayal. How quickly history can repeat itself. Lauren continued. Marcus told me he had been divorced for years. I said nothing. He showed me photographs. Of what? An empty house. She laughed bitterly. I know now it wasn't empty. It was your house. I felt my chest tighten. The photographs. Of course, Marcus had probably taken pictures whenever I visited my sister, or attended church, or spent weekends with friends. An empty kitchen, an empty living room, an empty bedroom. Evidence carefully manufactured to support another lie. Lauren continued speaking. He always had explanations. About what? Why I couldn't meet his family, why holidays were complicated, why weekends sometimes changed. I listened quietly. Every sentence sounded painfully familiar. He said his children blamed him for the divorce. We don't have children, I whispered. I know that now. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Finally, I asked, how long? Almost 8 years. Exactly what the photographs suggested. I thought we were building a future. So did I. The words escaped before I realized I'd spoken them aloud. Lauren sighed softly. I've spent 3 days reading court records. Court records? I hired an attorney yesterday. I frowned. Why? Because I needed to know whether any part of my life was real. The honesty in her answer startled me, not because it was dramatic, because it was familiar. I understood exactly what she meant. When trust collapses, you begin questioning everything. Every memory, every conversation, every smile, every promise. Nothing feels solid anymore. Lauren cleared her throat. I also found something. What? A receipt. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it felt strangely inevitable. A receipt? Hotel reservations. She paused. Marcus used my credit card sometimes. I frowned. I thought he paid for everything. So did I. Another lie. Apparently, Marcus preferred using whichever account seemed least likely to attract attention. Lauren continued. I requested statements from my bank, and there were weekends I paid. The room grew very still. He told me they were surprise vacations, but now I know. She couldn't finish. She didn't have to. I already understood. Marcus wasn't simply spending our money. Sometimes he spent hers too. 2 women, 2 bank accounts, 2 futures, each unknowingly financing the same deception. Lauren took a shaky breath. I don't want anything from you. I know. I'm not calling to defend myself. I know. I'm calling because... She hesitated, then spoke the sentence that changed everything. I have something you don't. I sat upright. What do you mean? I kept every letter Marcus ever wrote me. My pulse accelerated immediately. Letters, not text messages, not emails, handwritten letters, 8 years worth. I also have travel journals. Another pause. And a box full of anniversary gifts. I stared at the floor, because suddenly I realized something. I had spent the past week reconstructing Marcus's second life from photographs and receipts. Lauren had actually lived it. She possessed pieces of him I never seen, the man he pretended to be, the promises he made, the stories he told. Then Lauren said something that made my blood run cold. Angela? Yes? There was one anniversary he canceled. I frowned. Canceled? He said his wife had a medical emergency. I stopped breathing. because I knew exactly which year she meant, the year I underwent emergency surgery after my appendix ruptured. Marcus never left my hospital room, not once. I remember feeling grateful, believing that despite all his business travel, when I truly needed him, he chose me. Lauren's quiet voice interrupted my thoughts. I was angry with him for canceling. A long pause followed. I guess that's the only anniversary he ever told me the truth. The only anniversary he ever told me the truth. Lauren's words stayed with me long after we ended the call. I sat alone in the living room until sunset. The house felt impossibly quiet, not because Marcus wasn't home, because the silence itself seemed different. For the first time in 25 years, I wasn't waiting for him. I wasn't wondering when he'd arrive. I wasn't planning dinner around his schedule. Instead, I was replaying one sentence over and over again. He told me his wife had a medical emergency. I remembered that week perfectly. The pain had started suddenly. Within hours, I was in the emergency room. A ruptured appendix, emergency surgery, 3 days in the hospital. Marcus barely left my side. He slept in an uncomfortable chair beside my bed, brought me ice chips, read magazines out loud when I couldn't sleep, held my hand before surgery. Every nurse commented on how devoted my husband seemed. For years, that memory had comforted me. Now it comforted me for a different reason. It proved something important. Marcus wasn't incapable of choosing me. He had chosen me once. The tragedy was that he forced another woman to experience the same abandonment I would later discover for myself. No one won, everyone lost. The following morning, I woke before sunrise. I didn't make coffee. I didn't turn on the television. Instead, I carried every folder from the guest room closet into the dining room, one final time. Photographs, airline records, hotel invoices, bank statements, the Vineyard membership, the anniversary wine shipment, Lauren's public posts, everything. I arranged them carefully, chronologically. When I finished, the table looked less like evidence and more like a timeline of a life I had never been allowed to see. I counted 8 anniversary trips, 32 airline tickets, 17 luxury hotels, hundreds of photographs, dozens of restaurant charges, nearly $90,000 from our joint accounts. 8 years, reduced to paper. At 9 o'clock, I called an attorney. Her name was Patricia Ellis. Denise had recommended her years earlier after a property dispute involving another friend. She listened quietly while I summarized the situation. I didn't dramatize it. I simply described the facts. I have photographs. I have financial records. I have travel documents. I have social media archives. When I finished, Patricia asked only one question. Does your husband know you've discovered all this? No. Good. The answer surprised me. Good. Mrs. Reynolds, her voice remained calm. People often confront first and prepare later. A brief pause. I recommend you do the opposite. We scheduled a meeting for the next morning. She instructed me to bring copies, not originals, and not to mention divorce, not yet. Let him continue believing everything is normal. After we hung up, I began scanning documents, every receipt, every photograph, every bank statement, everything, saved onto 2 encrypted flash drives, one for Patricia, one for me. Just after lunch, Marcus called. How's your day going? Quiet. You sound tired. I didn't sleep much. I'm sorry. His concern sounded genuine. That's the part I still couldn't understand. How could someone lie so completely, yet still sound sincerely worried?
Perhaps that's what made deception so dangerous. Not that every emotion is fake, only that you never know which ones are real. "I'll pick up dinner tonight," he said. "Anything you're craving?" The question almost made me laugh. For 8 years, he'd managed 2 calendars, 2 relationships, 2 anniversary traditions, and now he wanted to know whether I preferred Chinese food or Italian. "No," I answered softly. "I'm fine." That evening, he came home carrying takeout, my favorite lemon chicken, extra spring rolls, exactly the way I liked it. Small acts of thoughtfulness, the kind that once convinced me I was deeply loved. Now they only reminded me how complicated people can be. After dinner, Marcus settled into the living room to watch a baseball game. I stood in the hallway watching him. He looked peaceful, relaxed. He laughed at the commentators, complained about a missed call by the umpire, completely ordinary. I wondered whether Lauren was sitting alone somewhere asking herself the same questions I was. Which memories had been real? Which smiles had been honest? Which promises meant anything at all? Around 10 o'clock, Marcus yawned. "I'm heading to bed. I'll be up in a little while." As soon as he disappeared upstairs, I locked the dining room door, opened my laptop, and organized one final folder. I titled it simply, Marriage Timeline. Every anniversary, every birthday, every conference, every vacation, every financial record, every contradiction, every verified lie. When I finally clicked save, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't building a case against Marcus anymore. I was rebuilding my confidence in myself. For days, I questioned my memories, my instincts, my judgment. Now I had something stronger than doubt. Facts. Quiet, undeniable facts. Just before midnight, my phone vibrated. A message from Lauren. Only one sentence. "My attorney wants to speak to yours. I think we've discovered something neither of us expected." I stared at the message. Then another arrived. "It isn't just the vacations. There's something much bigger involving the money."
It isn't just the vacations. I read Lauren's message 3 times, each time hoping I had misunderstood. The vacations were already enough. 8 years of deception, nearly $90,000 from our joint accounts, fake conferences, hidden anniversaries, another relationship? How could there possibly be something bigger? I replied with only 4 words. What did they find? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, returned. Finally, her response arrived. "Can we meet tomorrow after your attorney appointment?" I hesitated. A week earlier, the idea of sitting across from Lauren would have seemed impossible. Now, it felt necessary. Not because we were friends, because we were the only 2 people who understood the same lie from opposite sides. Yes. The next morning, I carried 2 organized binders into Patricia Ellis's office. One contained financial records, the other contained photographs, travel confirmations, and social media archives. Patricia spent nearly an hour reviewing everything without interruption. She rarely reacted. She simply made notes, placed colored tabs on important pages, occasionally asked for clarification. When she finally looked up, her expression was calm, professional. "Angela," she folded her hands, "this is one of the most thoroughly documented cases I've seen." I didn't feel proud. I felt tired. "So what happens now?" "We'll file." She paused. "But before we do," she slid one bank statement toward me. "I want you to notice something." I leaned forward. It was one I'd already examined dozens of times. Hotel charges, flights, restaurants, wine club purchases. I've seen it. I know. She pointed to a transfer near the bottom. $18,500. I frowned. I assumed that was an investment. So did I. She opened another document. Business registration records. A limited liability company. The registered address belonged to a mailbox service. The managing member wasn't Marcus, it was someone named Michael Reed. I don't understand. Patricia nodded. Neither did I. She handed me another page. The signature stopped me cold. Marcus's handwriting, only it wasn't signed Marcus Reynolds. It was signed Michael Reed. The room suddenly felt smaller. What is this? A business alias, she answered quietly. He appears to have created an LLC several years ago. I stared at the paperwork. Why? At first, I assumed it was connected to taxes. She shook her head. It wasn't. Another page, then another. Property records, investment accounts, short-term rental income, everything tied to the same company, everything managed under the name Michael Reed. My pulse accelerated. How much? Patricia didn't answer immediately. She reached for a calculator, turned the screen toward me. Estimated assets, $612,000. I stared silently. This wasn't hidden because of Lauren. Patricia spoke carefully. It wasn't hidden because of you either. Then why? I think Marcus was building an entirely separate financial life. A separate financial life, just as he built a separate emotional life. Two identities, two futures, two worlds. The pattern continued everywhere. Around noon, I left Patricia's office and drove to a quiet cafe overlooking the river. Lauren was already there. She stood as I approached. For a moment, neither of us knew what to do. Then she quietly said, "I'm sorry. I know. I would never have. I know." The conversation began with compassion instead of blame, perhaps because neither of us had the strength for anything else. Lauren placed a folder on the table. I brought everything. Inside were handwritten anniversary cards, postcards from trips, letters, receipts, small souvenirs, not evidence collected by an investigator, evidence collected by someone who believed she was preserving a love story. She looked down at her hands. I almost threw all of this away. I'm glad you didn't. So am I. Then she opened a smaller envelope. My attorney traced the company. The LLC? She nodded. There are vacation rentals. I frowned. Vacation rentals? He bought several small properties over the years. She slid photographs across the table. Cabins, beach cottages, mountain homes. He told me he managed them for investors. I looked closer. The ownership records listed only one name, Michael Reed. Lauren sighed. I don't think he wanted to leave us either. No, I think he wanted both lives forever. Neither of us spoke for several moments. The realization felt unbearable, not because Marcus loved two women, because he spent years constructing a future where neither woman knew the truth. Finally, Lauren reached into her purse. There was one more thing. She handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written across the front, not in Lauren's handwriting, not in Marcus's. It had been written by a hotel concierge. Below my name was a short handwritten note, to be delivered if Mr. Reynolds never returns next year. I looked up, confused. Lauren swallowed hard. He left it with the concierge after our last anniversary trip. My heartbeat quickened. He said if anything ever happened to him, she paused, someone should make sure you finally learned the truth. I stared at the envelope. After everything I had uncovered, after every photograph, every receipt, every lie, Marcus apparently planned one final confession, and somehow it had been waiting at a California vineyard all along. I held the envelope for a long time before opening it. The paper felt unusually heavy, not because it weighed much, because of everything it represented. 25 years of marriage, 8 years of deception, hundreds of lies, thousands of unanswered questions. Lauren sat quietly across from me. Neither of us spoke. The cafe overlooked the river. People laughed on the walking path outside. A young couple held hands as they crossed the bridge. Life continued with remarkable indifference. Meanwhile, my own life rested inside a sealed envelope. Finally, I slid one finger beneath the flap. The seal broke with a soft tear. Inside was a folded letter, several pages. Marcus's handwriting. There was no mistaking it. I unfolded the first page. The opening sentence stopped me immediately. "Angela, if this letter ever reaches you, then I ran out of courage before I ran out of time." I closed my eyes, not because I was crying, because I was tired, so incredibly tired. I continued reading. Marcus admitted what I already knew. There was no denial, no attempt to blame someone else, no claim that the photographs had been altered, no ridiculous explanation involving artificial intelligence. Only truth. He admitted the fake conferences, the anniversary trips, the second relationship, the hidden financial accounts, the vineyard, the luxury vacations, everything. He wrote that the first lie had seemed temporary, a single business trip he never intended to repeat. Then another, then another. Eventually, the lies became easier to maintain than the truth. He described waking up every morning believing he would finally tell me everything. Every evening, he postponed it again. Days became months. Months became years. Years became nearly a decade. One sentence stayed with me. Every lie protected me for a day and imprisoned me for another year. I read it twice. It didn't excuse what he had done. Nothing could. But it explained something I had struggled to understand. Cowardice rarely arrives all at once. Sometimes it grows quietly. One avoided conversation, one delayed confession, one convenient excuse, until eventually an entire life is built around pretending tomorrow will be different. Marcus admitted something else, something neither Lauren nor I expected. He never planned to leave either of us, not because he loved wisely, because he loved selfishly. He wanted two futures, two homes, two anniversary traditions, two versions of himself. He convinced himself he could manage both forever. Instead, he destroyed them both. Then I reached the final page, the page that mattered most. Marcus wrote, "The anniversary wasn't supposed to belong to a lie." He explained that every year he promised himself the next anniversary would be different, the next trip would be canceled, the next conversation would finally happen. Instead, every September became another opportunity to postpone honesty, another opportunity to choose comfort over courage. Then came the final paragraph. No request for forgiveness, no plea for sympathy. Only one request. Please don't spend the rest of your life remembering me at vineyards, airports, and conference rooms. Those places belong to my worst decisions. I hope someday you create new memories that belong only to you. I lowered the letter. Neither Lauren nor I spoke for several minutes. Finally, she whispered, "I think he believed writing that letter was enough." I nodded slowly. It wasn't. No, it was simply too late. Lauren looked out toward the river. "So, what happens now?" I smiled sadly. "We live." She looked back at me. "That's it? It's enough." Because I finally understood something. Justice doesn't always arrive as revenge. Sometimes justice is simply refusing to let someone else's choices define the rest of your life. The divorce moved forward quickly. Marcus's own financial records confirmed everything. The court reviewed the travel expenses charged to our joint accounts, luxury hotels, flights, private vineyard memberships, restaurant bills, anniversary packages. The judge ordered those expenditures included in the financial settlement. The hidden rental properties and business accounts were also disclosed during the proceedings.
Nothing remained hidden. Not anymore. Several months later, the divorce was finalized. Friends asked whether I planned to celebrate what would have been my 26th anniversary. For weeks, I didn't know how to answer. Then one morning, I booked a trip. Not to Napa Valley, not to any place Marcus had ever visited. I chose a quiet coastal town on the Atlantic Ocean. No itinerary, no expectations, no painful memories, just me. On my first evening there, I carried a folding chair onto the beach. The sun drifted slowly toward the horizon. Families laughed nearby. Children chased waves. A gentle breeze carried the scent of salt and seagrass. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. Not because everything had been repaired, some things never are. Not because the past stopped hurting, it still did. But because the future finally belonged to me. As the sun disappeared beneath the water, I lifted a simple paper cup of coffee toward the sky. No expensive wine, no engraved anniversary glasses, no elaborate celebration, just quiet gratitude. I smiled, not for the marriage that ended, but for the woman who survived it. The anniversary no longer marked the day I promised forever to someone who couldn't honor it. It marked the day I promised honesty to myself, and that promise was one I intended to keep. I still believe photographs tell stories, but now I understand something I didn't know before. Pictures don't reveal the truth by themselves. People choose what they place inside the frame. Real truth often lives just outside it, in receipts, in travel records, in quiet inconsistencies, in the questions we're afraid to ask. The Vineyard photographs didn't destroy my marriage. The deception had already done that. The photographs simply gave the truth a voice. And once I finally heard it, I was free. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. And tell me in the comments, what small clue has ever completely changed the way you saw a person or a situation? I'd love to read your stories.